Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock on a Monday, which means it's time for a 5x5. This is where I take 5 subjects related to magic. I spend 5 minutes talking about each subject and I move on to the next subject. It's always quick, it's always snappy, and you never know what you're going to get. And today is going to be a big one. Today we're going to be doing 5 things that magic dealers don't tell you about new releases. Now, here's the thing, right? I have been in this industry a very long time. I started creating magic around about 20 years ago, and I've been involved in this side of the industry for so long. I think it was over 20 years ago when I first released my first product at the Blackpool Magic Convention. I released Attack of the Bag and flipped out, and then for the following 5 or 6 years I regularly released more tricks, whilst at the same time working with Dave Penn on the Wizard Product Review, reviewing thousands and thousands and thousands of tricks. And then I stepped away from the community for a while, came back, and for the last few years I've been running Magic TV. I've been reviewing hundreds of objects, hundreds of tricks, hundreds of products, as well as creating a ton of magic myself, which I've released through some of the most major magic companies in the whole of the UK. So I know this industry really well, and I've been involved with most production companies when it comes to actually releasing a physical product. I'm aware of what goes on in their head. I know what's going on in the head of the marketing company or the marketing department that is creating the hype for that particular product. I've kind of been around a long time. And look, I've spoken on this channel before defending trailers for tricks, and I will continue to defend them to my dying breath, because here's the thing. The most important thing you need to understand about a trailer is it's marketing, and marketing is really important. I hear people saying all of the time, magic companies shouldn't just hype anything. They should just literally put up a full performance and then that's it. But the thing is, there's a lot of time, there's a lot of energy, and there's a lot of effort that's gone into creating that trick and releasing that trick. When you see it drop in Murphy's, you have just seen the end of a process that could have taken place over the course of years. And over the course of years, they've prototyped, they've gone back and forth, they've gone out and tried variations that maybe haven't worked and gone back to the drawing board, and have got to a point where they've finally got a trick that they feel works, and then they've gone through the process of creating it and filming the tutorial and the trailers and the live performances. And it's a long process, a lot longer than people think. A lot of people don't realize how long this process is. I was speaking to Phil Smith the other day, and we were having this conversation about how people don't realize how long this process is, but it is a very long process. And so because of that, when the trailer drops for a particular trick, it's really important that that trick is successful, because that production company is a business. They've spent a lot of time and effort and money getting the trick to the point where they're releasing it to a magic community. They're releasing it to everybody. And if that trick fails, if that trick doesn't do very well, then that's an issue for their business. A lot of production companies, they literally operate on a trick by trick basis. So they need to make sure that it's successful. And that means hyping the trick. That means putting out trailers. That means, making sure that everybody's aware of it. And I have no problem with that. A lot of the magicians that will be negative about trailers or hype campaigns or whatever it is that's being used to market a trick, if they were a professional magician, they'd be doing the same things to market their services to the general public. Because if they didn't go to wedding fairs, if they didn't put online adverts online, if they didn't put videos out of them performing on social media, they probably wouldn't be getting any gigs. So it's really important for you to understand that I fully am 100% invested in any marketing and any promotion strategy that any company feels that they need to do in order to sell the product, as long as the trailer is honest and ethical and it's not basically showing something that doesn't happen. I'm all for it. It's down to that production company at the end of the day. Having said that, I have been around thousands of products. I've been on other people's products. I've been on my own products. I've seen reviews. I've been inside the belly of the beast with most of the big production companies, and I know the process inside out and back to front. And so I thought it would be a fun thing to do a video on 5 things that magic dealers don't really tell you about new releases. And a lot of these are specifically about the trailer. So if you're interested, we're going to break it down, and we're going to break it down right now. Okay, so the first thing that I want to tell you about, the first thing that you're not really told about by magic dealers when it comes to a new product, is the trailer is a movie, not a performance. Here's the first truth. Most trailers are designed like Hollywood movies, not to be a full unedited performance. And that's important for you to understand, because I've seen people say over and over again, we just want to see a performance. We just want to see a performance. But from a marketing point of view, that wouldn't make any sense. There's some tricks that take like 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes to perform. And, you know, there's some tricks that have exposition in them, like 2 or 3 minutes of patter or presentation or setup that is required in order to make the routine flow, in order to make for the final moment stronger, right? If you just did a full live performance, that might do more harm than good a lot of the time, because if you're seeing a full live performance and maybe it's performed in a way that you don't see yourself perform, maybe you can't relate to that as a performer because you perform in a completely different style. Maybe you're a very fast-paced performer and this is a slow-paced performance, or maybe whatever. There's a million different reasons. You might look at that and halfway through you'll switch off and you go, nah, I don't think that's for me. And for those people that go, no, I wouldn't do that, yes, you would. I look at the algorithms on YouTube and I see when people switch off and I see when people don't switch off. And it's the same with the trailer. I know when people switch off and don't switch off. And here's the thing, I put live performances on my channel all the time, and I also put trailers on my channel the whole time. And the same trick, if I put a live performance up, there'll be a bigger drop off when it comes to people watching the live performance than there would be with a trailer, and that's just the same across the board. So one of the key things about bringing a trick out is you want to make sure that everybody sees that trailer. You want to make sure that everybody is like invested in that trailer, because you've only got one chance to create a first impression as a production company. You get that trailer in front of that magician. If they get 2 or 3 minutes into that and they kind of switch off because they're bored, you're not going to be able to get them to see that trailer again. You're not going to be able to get them to see that performance again. So it's got to be quick. It's got to be quick, and it's got to be snappy. That's the important thing about a trailer. It's got to be quick. It's got to be snappy. It's why a lot of the trailers you see will have that Hollywood kind of trailer feel to them, because they want to show magical moments. They want to, if the trick involves, for example, the best method to an ambitious card you've ever seen, you want to see that moment. You want to see that moment where that card comes to the top of the deck. If your trick involves something magical happening in the spectator's hand, you want that moment. You don't necessarily want to show the 2 or 3 minutes that lead up to that, because that's not what people, that's not going to sell people on the trick. What's going to sell people on the trick is that moment where they open their hands. Like, sponge balls have been around forever now, but if sponge balls didn't exist and then a company created sponge balls, you damn well know that trailer would open up with somebody opening their hand, seeing 2 balls and freaking out. And that's the other thing, you'll see a lot of trailers where people are reacting, where you see people reacting. And the reason why those reaction shots are so important is because it's almost validation. It's validation to say, look, this is being performed in the real world and this works. You can see it works because these people are reacting to the magic. That's why those reaction shots are in there. Those reaction shots are there so that you, watching the trailer, can see that this is a trick that works, that people will enjoy. If you had 2 trailers of exactly the same trick, and the first trick was a live performance to one person at a table, and their reaction was like, yeah, that's good. And then the other one was shots of, let's say the trick is, again, a card coming to the top of the deck, and the second trailer is shots of the card coming to the top of the deck, and people going, oh my God, that's amazing. Look, it's more likely that that's the one that's going to resonate with you more. Now, not for everybody. There's people that have been in this industry for 10, 15, 20 years that are jaded, and rightfully so. They've seen every trailer come out and they know inside out and back to front likely what a trailer is going to look like. But you have to understand there's new people coming into magic every 5 minutes, literally every day. New people are finding magic that have never seen a trailer before. And the first thing they're going to find is Vanishing Ink or Penguin Magic or Alakazam or something like that, and they're going to go and look at all of these trailers, and the thing that's going to get them excited are the visual moments and the moments where people are reacting. And nothing's going to change that as long as production companies, as long as new people are coming into Magic, and as long as production companies' goal is to sell Magic, which as they're a business it will be, they will continue to make trailers like this because that is effectively the best way to make a trailer. Okay, so the second thing that you're probably not told by Magic dealers is that most new tricks aren't actually that new. Most of them. Like, I've had people say this negatively about me in the past. Like, when I bought out Credit Swipe, people were like, oh, well, hang on a minute, that's Daryl's Presto Printo, but it's done with credit cards. Or, Chop, hey, that's Chop Cup, but you've put the gimmick in something else, and therefore, it's the same thing as a Chop Cup. I've seen people say that about my Magic all the time, but not just my Magic, pretty much everybody's Magic. Because here's the thing, this is the thing you need to understand. Most of the new tricks that come out are based on older principles. There's very little that comes out that's brand new. It can happen, like a lot of the stuff that Tobias Dostal does, especially the Liquify and Liquid Spectrum and stuff like that, that is, quite new. And you do get new stuff coming up. You get new principles coming out. I'm not saying it never happens, but it's kind of few and far between because most of the releases that come out are variations on something that's been around a long time. So, for example, one of the best tricks of, one of the tricks that I said was one of the best tricks of last year was the Nest of Wallets by Grum. Now, Nest of Wallets have been around since time began. It was around before Nick Einhorn bought it out. It's been around forever. But Grum improved it in many different ways, and that's why I said it was one of the best tricks. You look at Knock 'em Dead, which was one of Alakazam's best tricks of 2024, one of the best-selling tricks of 2024, a killer prediction. It's very heavily based on the Karam deck, the Karam 101 deck, but completely reworked and slightly different, But the point is, thousands of people bought that trick. Thousands of people bought it. Then you look at, another Alakazam trick. You look at a trick I gave a great review to, and I was involved in the project as well, which is Eric Stevens' Color Sticks project that he did with Alakazam, the Color Sticks thing, which is a great trick. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's a variation on the paddle, the old hot rod paddle trick, but Eric brought something new to the table and therefore released it. You look at a lot of the stuff that I do, the big projects where, hey, this is an example of what you can do with an invisible deck, or what you can do with a Mirage deck, what you can do with a Svengali deck. The list goes on and on and on. There's very little that's new in Magic because everyone has to be inspired by something. A lot of people, creators aren't coming up with brand new methods. Like you look at, every single creator. I mean, I could just go through it over and over again. You look at everybody. There generally tends to be variations on a theme. You look at stuff and you got how many wallets have come out now that are effectively an SUC or a standard peak wallet, and they've just made the wallet slightly different, or it's a card to wallet and they've made the card to wallet slightly different. That's the thing you need to understand. So, if you're wanting to save money on Magic, a lot of people go, how can I save money on Magic? I don't want to buy as much Magic. Then maybe look at the trick and go, well, okay, this is a great trick, but maybe I have something that's similar to that. How can reverse engineer it and say, right, okay, so this is what this trick is. Where was the original inspiration from? Maybe I can perform that. Maybe that's already in my repertoire. Now, that's not always the case. For again, using Presto Printo Credit Swipe as an example, if you want to do a printing routine with credit cards, you're going to have to get Credit Swipe because there is no other version out there that uses credit cards. But if you don't and you want to do that routine and not use credit cards, then Presto Printo is a great option. So yeah, it's important for people to understand that generally as an industry, although there are new tricks coming out all of the time, a lot of the new tricks tend to be variations on a theme and just taking something and bringing it bang up to date and maybe using a different spin. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, by the way, at all. I mean, I really don't think there's anything wrong with that. I've got a trick coming out at some point that's a credit card trick, and it's based on a Cards Across. But by doing a completely different method, it's morphed into something else. But the ability to do this with credit cards really opens up many possibilities that weren't opened up before with a pack of cards. It takes something that's a card trick and changes it up completely. And that's something that you need to understand, that even though they're variations on something that's come out previously, that doesn't necessarily mean they don't belong in the market. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but it's something that you should be aware of that really isn't tending to be highlighted by Magic dealers. Okay, so the third thing that I want to talk to you about, the third thing that Magic dealers typically don't say, is the difficulty level is generally downplayed more often than not. How many times have you seen written on some packaging, easy to do, perform within minutes, self-working? That tends not to be the case. And I've wrote down here, dealers can soften the difficulty rating to make the product appeal to more buyers. Because if they said on the packaging requires weeks of practice to make it look good, it doesn't sell as well as perform this instantly. Look, here's the thing, right? I've bought tricks out and I have considered them really, 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 really easy. I've had people feed back to me and say, well, actually, I found this element of it difficult, or I found that element of it difficult. Well, for me, it's a very, very simple thing. Case in point is the Savant deck. I have absolutely no problem shuffling the Savant deck, but I've had people in the past turn around to me and say, I've really struggled with that move. Now, that's absolutely fine. I've given them other options that they can use instead of the shuffle, and we've added stuff to the tutorial. But still, for me, that's not a difficult thing to do. It's a relatively simple thing. But for others, it's hard. And I think one of the reasons is a lot of people that come into this industry, when they first come into the industry, they're very, very new. Maybe they don't know a lot of sleight of hand. And some people don't want to learn a lot of sleight of hand. I mean, look at Matt. Matt is a perfect example. Matt doesn't really know sleight of hand at all. I'm currently teaching him for his cabaret show a PK chairs routine. And it's a set of, I've got in my warehouse a set of remote controlled PK chairs that are absolutely amazing, that I've used for a few years now. And I'm teaching him how to do that routine for his cabaret show. And it involves holding a feather and palming a remote control in the same hand that's holding the feather, and then keeping that remote control held out throughout the performance. And the thing that he's struggling with most isn't the presentation, which with PK chairs is very tricky. It's not the presentation, it's not connecting with the audience, it's not performing it to the audience. It's very much the case that he's having to hold out a remote control all the way through the show. And that's because he's not, and he said to me when we were rehearsing the other day, he said, it's not something I do. I don't really palm things. It's not something I do. Matt's not the only person, but it's an example of people that come into this industry and they kind of gravitate away from sleight of hand. They gravitate away from tricky moves and they want to focus on the self-working stuff and the stuff that's easy to do. And that's fine. It's your prerogative to do that, and that's not a problem at all. But more people are like that than people that want to learn sleight of hand. Now, to be clear, there's lots of people that do want to learn sleight of hand, but I'd say there's more people, especially look, here's the thing. Magic is a revolving door, in that a lot of people will find magic. They'll find the magic community and they'll go balls deep into it. They'll be like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever. They'll spend a fortune on magic. They'll buy a load of stuff. They'll overload themselves. And over the course of 6 months, they'll kind of fall out of love with magic. And then one day they'll disappear and they won't do it anymore. And they're left with a load of stuff in their house that they don't use anymore. There's a revolving door. A lot of people come and a lot of people go. And because of that, when tricks are bought out, you want to try and appeal to people that have maybe limited skill or limited experience when it comes to sleight of hand, or it comes to moves, or it comes to performance. So you want to use terms like this is super easy to perform. Now, a lot of the time, if they say it's easy, it probably is, but let's be honest, easy is subjective. I could think that something is very, very easy, and then Matt, for example, would find it very, very difficult. And that's not a diss on Matt, because I think Matt's a better performer than me. But what I mean is he would struggle with something because I've had years of experience of using sleight of hand where he hasn't really gone down that route. So, it's subjective what's easy and what's not easy. A dealer could say, this is incredibly easy, whilst in reality, a lot of people will find it not that easy. But the easiest way to sell something to the general public is by saying it's easy, it's self-working. It's why you'll see a lot of tricks with a a handling that requires no skill, because that will allow them to say on the packaging, hey, this is easy. It might not be the main routine, but it's a routine that they've developed to make it accessible. Now, that's, again, not necessarily a bad thing, but it's worth noting that when you see a product, just because it says it's easy, it might not be as easy as you think that it is. Okay, so number 4, the fourth thing that dealers aren't telling you is limited edition usually means artificial scarcity. How many times have you seen this? Only 500 units available. When they've gone forever. And then 6 months later, they're restocked, or there's a deluxe edition, or version 2 suddenly comes out. Look, here's the thing that you need to understand. This sort of thing is a sales tactic. And there's nothing wrong. Now, I'm not saying that they're not limited in quantities, but you know what? When somebody says that there's only 100 available or something, like if a magic shop says we've only got 10 in stock, they might genuinely only have 10 in stock, but the wholesaler might have a couple of thousand, right? So it's not like they're lying to you. It's just that they're trying to create FOMO. FOMO stands for fear of missing out. And it's a valid sales tactic. As somebody who spent a large part of their career teaching salespeople how to sell, I can tell you right now that FOMO is one of the most important sales tactics that you will ever use. I use it every single day in the sales office in my office. If somebody rings up and says, hey, I want a magician, the first thing that we're going to say is well, I need to check to see if we're available. It's a very, very busy day. Now, it might not be a busy day. It might be that we've got a ton of people available, but it's always a busy day, and it's always going to be a struggle to get those people in, because here's the thing. If I turn around and go, yeah, we're completely available, it's not a problem, then it's going to it's not going to, 1, inspire confidence, but 2, it's not going to impulse them to want to book there and then, or book quicker than they would have done. Because here's the thing, if somebody thinks that they're close to missing out on this thing that they want to book, they're more likely to book than if they realize that there's a lot of space available. You get the idea, right? So it's the same with magic dealers. If they turn around to you and go, well, we've got limited stock. Yeah, they might have limited stock, but they could easily get more stock in. If they turn around to you and go, well, it's going to sell out very, very soon. It might sell out very, very soon, but they might be able to get more stock in. You have to understand, like, if you're buying a trick, the goal of the production company or the dealer is for you to buy that trick as soon as possible. Because if you buy that trick, that's money that goes into their bank account as opposed to sitting in your bank account. Again, that's not a bad thing. That's business. It's something that's done in every single industry by every single person, but it's something that you need to understand. So if you're debating about whether to buy a trick or not, and you're thinking, well, I need to buy it because if I don't buy it, it's going to go out of stock, I guarantee you'll be able to still get it. You're going to be able to still get it. Leave it a week or 2, wait for reviews, and then check it out, and then go and buy it. And pre-orders, you never need to pre-order anything, because a lot of the time when you pre-order something, it's just going to get sent out when it goes live for everyone else to buy anyway. But, that's something that you need to understand. A lot of the time, there's a lot of scarcity in magic. Okay, so the final point that I want to make, and the final thing that you're not being told, is that sometimes weak moments can be left out of a trailer. The moments you don't see in the trailer, they tend to be the most important. And it could be that awkward moment before the switch, the reset time between performances, the handling angle that only works from one side. Trailers will only show you the clean moments. And the other thing is they will focus on the positives whilst try to downplay the negatives. Now that is, again, sales 101. It's not like a magic dealer or a magic production company is doing something wrong. That's done in every industry by every business that's ever existed. But it's something you need to be aware of. So, for example, you've seen those adverts where it goes, no rough and smooth, no short and long, no this, no that. You can typically work out what the method is by looking at what it's not. A lot of the time, right? Okay, so it's got to be this then, hasn't it? Because that's the only thing they've said that it's not, right? So the important thing to consider is When you see a trailer or you see an ad copy, try to read between the lines, because there's always a negative. Look, magic is not real. We can't really do magic. Magicians can't snap our fingers and make magic happen. So in other words, there has to be a process. There has to be a process to get you from A to B. If B is the end result and A is the starting position, you can't just snap your fingers and go from A to B immediately. You need to go through that process. There has to be a process, because if there wasn't, it would be real magic. So understanding that process will help you decide whether a trick is for you better or not. Because here's the thing, how many times have you bought a trick and when you've bought it, you've took it home and you've looked at it and you've gone, you know what, this is not for me. This is not the trick that I wanted. I don't think I can make this work in my act. We've all had that. We've all got a bottom drawer. I've got a bottom part of my warehouse. I've got a ton of stuff in there that I'm never going to be able to do. It's just not worked for me. It's part and parcel of being a magician. You take your chances, you take your risks. Sometimes they pay off and sometimes they don't. But you can mitigate that risk by trying to read between the lines. You can mitigate that risk by looking at the trick and going, okay, right, okay. And asking the right questions. Speak to your dealer. If it's a good dealer, they'll answer the question for you. What's the reset time like this? I was looking at a trick that I'm about to review, and it's a great trick. The visual looks great, but the problem is you have to walk over to the table, set up. There's no way to set yourself up when you walk over to the table. You can't just go, excuse me, you can't just go into your pocket and bring the trick out and start performing it. You have to set it up and walk over to the table set up. Now, it's a great trick. The visual's great. The angles are great. But for me, that's a no-go. I'm never going to be able to use that, because I'm never going to walk over to the table set up to do a trick, because I don't know what trick I'm going to do first. And I think it would be weird walking over holding a particular object in order to be able to do this particular trick. So for me, it's a no-go zone. Now, here's the thing. In this trick, they haven't actually said that that is a thing that needs to happen. They've just talked about the positives. They've talked about the angles. They've talked about the reset. They've talked about this. They've talked about that. And I get why, but for me, that's a negative that makes this trick not work for me. So a lot of the time, it's about asking questions. It's about asking questions, and it's about reading between the lines and asking yourself if the trick that you see here is actually one that's going to work in your act. So there you go, guys. That's another video in the bag. Thank you once again for joining me right here on Magic TV. That is 5 things that magic dealers don't tell you. Now, it's over to you. Can you think of any others? Let me know in the comments down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. And finally, don't forget to join the Netrix. It's my online streaming platform for magicians. It's called the Netrix.com. You can get access immediately. Outside of that, I'll see you again soon. Thank you so much for watching. My name's Craig, and this is Magic TV.